120 to 140 women have been subject to female genital mutilation over the years, and currently at least 3 million girls at risk each year. In avoid to data presented, or this is data presented by the World Health Organization in Africa and Cameroon, female genital mutilation is still practiced in some parts of the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon. Remains a preoccupying issue, and so the practice has persisted for over 1,000 years. Programmatic evidence suggests that female genital mutilation can end in just one generation. The program is Turn Up, a program that seeks to empower women and the girl child. Still does. February 6 each year is observed as the International Day of Zero Tolerance for female genital mutilations. Is actually today, and our goal for 2019 is empowering women to participate fully in economic life across all sectors. Is essential to build stronger economies, and we focus today on female genital mutilation. Why the practice persists? That's a question we are asking. We are equally looking for solutions how we could address this problem to eventually eliminate female genital mutilation, will continue to affect the lives of millions of young girls and women across the globe. The program is Turn Up. We'll be right back after the teaser. If you want to participate on today's program, you can send us your messages on the numbers you'll be seeing on your TV screens. You can equally follow our past editions on YouTube and on Facebook. You just need to type Maureen Ndih-Turn Up. I have all the past editions of Turn Up. Right now, I want us to start with the teaser. You're going to know our guest just right after.
Why does female genital cutting persist in certain places but has declined elsewhere? What factors influence the persistence of female genital mutilation in Cameroon and other African countries? According to the World Health Organization, approximately 200 million girls and women have been mutilated around the world. The practice is strongly tied to different cultural traditions. Female genital mutilation has called for international recognition due to its violations of human rights. In today's edition of Turn Up, we look at female genital mutilation in all its forms.
Guests are right here with us in the studio. They are all women, as usual. Invite our fine brains, women who share their opinions, who share their testimonies, who are here to share their views on important issues that concern women. I'll begin with someone who is very close to me. She's seated right beside me. She's called Ruth. Pierre, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Maureen.
Now, how are you?
I'm good.
Now, the last time I had information about is that you were traveling to Gabon, or?
I was in Ghana. In Ghana. You know, my company is based in Ghana. I just have a representation here in Cameroon. So I was there for.
And you're talking about branding?
Yeah, I do marketing communications,
publishing,
and events management.
Okay. Now we equally have Clarice and Ndingue of Better Girls. Now, how better are you girls?
Hi everyone, our girls are doing well. Our better girls are fine.
So what was your priority for 2019?
My priority for 2019 is to reach more girls, sensitize more girls, raise more awareness on issues concerning girls among girls, especially young girls in this generation.
Alright, today we're talking about female genital mutilation. It's actually the day.
Yeah.
It's fortunate for us that it fell on the day we're doing a program. So let's talk about female genital mutilation. But for the past years, we have so much talk about female genital mutilation, but it seems not to be ending. Now, what's the problem?
I feel like one of the problems is just the fact that our needs is, or should I say, the custodians of our culture are very conservative. They don't want to open up and listen. They don't want to believe that this thing that they have been doing for years is wrong. They don't want to listen to people who are coming up and telling them that this thing is not healthy, this thing does not help these girls. What they have in their minds is just what they want to carry on. So I just feel like it's this conservative nature of Cameroonians, especially those custodians of the tradition that want to uphold this tradition that is not helping our young girls.
Now, despite much campaign on it, we hear about female genital mutilation every year, comes up each year, but after that it dies away. Now, what do you have to say about it?
What I'll say is, first of all, I didn't think that at this age, with all what's going on around the world, we'll still be talking about female genital mutilation, because the society has so much evolved that I think practices like this ought not to even come up as topics for discussion. But then there are some people, you know, who are bent on keeping their cultures, you know, and they'll do everything because they think in their minds that maybe what they are doing is correct. They'll do everything to safeguard it. But I think the fact that we're still talking about it is because maybe we haven't yet reached, you know, at the nucleus of all this. Because I think we should get all the organizations that are responsible.
Get to the root. Is that what you're talking about?
Get to the root of this. I think it has to start from
now, when you talk about getting to the root, now what do you mean?
Getting to the root means every culture has a place where it's birthed. Every culture has a place where it's coming from. They have their ideologies, they have, you know, their culture. So we have to go, all the organizations that are responsible to eradicate this have to go right at the root of this, where these cultures are birthed from, and start sensitizing from there.
Okay. Now, Clarice, when should sensitization begin?
Where?
And how?
I feel like because this practice is common in the rural areas. In Cameroon, I know it's very common in Manfi, the Manfi side, in Yomojok, particularly, and in the northern part of the country, just like you said. And those are places where people are very, very conservative. Like, it is really very difficult to convince these people that this thing that people are doing is not correct. And I feel like that is why it's still happening in this age. So I feel like sensitization should start from there. But
does it mean that it's a problem with the campaigns, with the sensitization?
Yes, maybe we should change the approach, because I'd like to say that there has been an improvement, no doubt. There has been a reduction of the number of people, the number of victims of this practice, but then it is still existing. So I just feel like maybe we should change the approach. Maybe we should get more rural people involved. Maybe we should try to reach out to the victims and let them be part of these sensitization campaigns, to come back and talk about their experiences and try to share. Maybe that is the approach we should be using to help to make these people to see that this thing that you did to us, this is what it cost in our lives, and so you should not do it to these other people. I feel like we should just change the approach of the whole sensitization.
Now, is the same view? So
I think yeah, more, you know, we need to communicate more about the
they're not communicating enough.
Exactly.
We're talking about NGOs.
Exactly.
We have the women empowerment and the family.
What are these NGOs? Where are they? You know, what are they doing? They should
are they even on the field? Are they on the field?
Are they on the field? So they should communicate more, because the more awareness it's created, the more people know what it is, the more people know the negative effects about, the more, you know, people shun away from the practices. I think that more communication, more awareness has to be created for people to know the, you know, the effects and the consequences, which are negative. Like most cases come with negative effects. So this has to be communicated thoroughly, so that the people who practice this should, you know, start shunning away from the practice.
Clarice, on a day like this, what do you have expected as campaign strategy?
On a day like this, I'll expect
because we don't seem to feel anything anywhere.
Exactly. And I feel like maybe it's because we are in an area, we're in Douala, and here in Douala, female genital mutilation is almost doesn't exist, because we don't know what happens in some homes. but we'll say almost doesn't exist. That's why we are not experiencing any talk about it or anything. But I feel like in the rural areas, or in the areas where this practice is occurring, one thing that we could do is to reach out to families, because from my research, the people who carry this practice out are family members. Usually maybe it's a grandmother on a granddaughter, or an auntie on a niece. Usually it is women, older women in the family, that do it to the younger women, or maybe elderly women in a particular community that do it to the younger girls in that community. So maybe we should try to change our campaign strategies to be more family based. Like, we can find ways to actually go to homes, talk to people that can actually relate with the traditional, maybe the traditional language of these people. Want to reach out to look for a local in the area and have that person actually, you know, come along, because I feel like these rural people, besides being conservative, they have a way that they want to work that they would easily relate with themselves. So there has to be somebody from that area who is going to be a part of, you know, the campaign team that goes out. And I feel like home-based sensitization is very important. Like, instead of the normal events where you can go to maybe use a town hall, call people to come, maybe the strategy should change, like what Jehovah's Witness does. You actually go from home to home. You can choose a series of, you know, you be like, okay, which of these homes have like homes that have elderly women, go to those homes and, you know, talk to the women about the practice and just sensitize them. I feel like that is what we should do. That's the approach we should take.
Now, don't you think that the fact that all the women are not involved in this campaign is a problem?
Yeah.
I think it's a problem. That's why I'll go back to saying that, you know, we need to speak more about issues like this. Because if you don't speak more, if the organization,
because if each woman or every woman takes it as a personal problem.
Yeah. Well, you know,
because we don't see that.
It's not seen. It's not seen, and it's first of all, it's a topic that most women think it's no more. You know, so if the organizations that are concerned keep, you know, reiterating the fact that we need to do this, if maybe the Ministry of Female or Women's Affairs calls for, you know, on days like this, calls for a general meeting to sensitize women about this issue, I think that it's
oh, why not? Don't you think they can use another approach, like, because they know the areas where it is practiced?
It's practiced, yes.
So now, how do you reach those areas? Is it just about calling just women in urban towns to sit and talk about it?
It's not only the women in the areas that are supposed to be talked to. There are also women who who are ready to support some causes, but they don't know that there is something that's supposed to be done like this. But then there are also organizations that are particularly, you know, concerned about this specific issue, you know, and these organizations are supposed to make sure that they make other women aware that, hey, there's something happening like this back here. You understand? So I think that it goes both ways.
All right, let's look at government's approach to it. Is government doing enough to ensure that this barbaric practice is eradicated?
I would say that the government of Cameroon is very much aware and about women's rights. Human rights first of all, and then women's rights in particular. Okay. And I think that together with the World Health Organization, because I saw some programs they had with UNICEF where they're protecting children. So I think that at the level of the government, I think they've done considerable job.
But the fact that it still exists is still a problem.
Yes, it exists, but the percentage of women that are mutilated or girls that are mutilated has reduced.
But we need to eradicate it.
Yes, but
it needs to be I feel like the government can actually do more. They have done enough, like you said. They have done a lot, like you said, considerable amount of work with the UNICEF, with WHO. But then there's a lot more that they can do. For example, one of the things that they can do, they know these areas. They have access to the rural leaders in these areas. They have access to the women leaders in these areas, so they are best placed to actually reach the people that need to know about this thing and talk to them about it, or teach them what they need to know about it. Those are things that's information that private or personal NGOs cannot have access to easily, but the government has access to that information. They have access to these
because
people.
we know some of these rural areas where you have government structures are right there, and the practices it's going on there, and nobody's saying anything about it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking. Is government doing enough to ensure that the practice is eliminated?
That's it, because from my research, yes, the government has been talking about it, but from what I learned, maybe Barrister will let us know more. From what I learned, it has not been banned. Like, the practice has not been banned.
Okay.
It is being talked about, and it's like, no, this is not a good practice. But there's nothing. Maybe she will enlighten us. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
but
she's here to tell us
about it.
What the law says exactly.
Voila. So, but it has not been banned. Like, okay, this thing, if you are caught doing this thing, this is what happened to you. What has been happening has been sensitization. This thing is a bad practice. These are the negative effects. These are the this. But nobody is saying that nobody should do it. So maybe if the government, puts steps puts on that kind of hard foot on
or maybe reach a level where you arrest somebody or arrest women for doing that. Have you reached that level?
I don't think so.
No,
and yesterday I was reading in the news, Uganda, there was a lady, a Ugandan lady, who was arrested for this practice. I think she's the first who has actually been tried and arrested for this. So just imagine, this thing has been going on for years, and it is news that somebody gets arrested for it.
Okay.
So I think maybe we are getting getting more aware, getting closer to eradicating it. And I feel like the real solution would be to ban it. Let it not be allowed. Let it not be something that's accepted. It should not be that we are saying that it is bad. We should just say that don't do it. It should be a crime.
I know none of you has been mutilated.
Yeah.
But I want to ask now, how does it feel like to be mutilated? Now imagine that you're one of the girls with such practices, where it happens on you. Now how will you feel?
Oh my God, that would be a very, very devastating thing. First of all, besides the pain that you go through, besides the health challenges, besides the fact that you are exposed to diseases, because when they do those things in the villages, they don't use proper medical, equipment and stuff. You are exposed to any kind of disease, first of all. Secondly, there's no sexual satisfaction. You don't get satisfaction from sex. So sex almost means nothing to you. Like when I was growing up, there was this story they told us. We used to always hear about Bayangi girls. I'm not insulting anybody, but I'm just saying this is like a folklore kind of thing, where people used to always say that Bayangi girls are loose girls because they have sex. That was because there was this generation of girls from that side that had been, circumcised, as they say. So they never used to derive pleasure from sex. So sex does not mean anything to them. So they could have sex anytime, anywhere, with anybody.
Doesn't mean they were mutilated.
They were mutilated. Many of them were mutilated. That's back in the days. Many of those girls were mutilated. So that's why they easily had sex. Like, sex does not mean anything to them, because they derived no pleasure from sex. So most of the time they used it for material, like
which means that the mutilation is more of, it has a negative impact.
It has a negative impact.
And that's why negative than positive.
It's more of negative than positive, because those people, when they do it, they say they are doing it on you because, first of all, it's tradition. Secondly, you are too young. They want to reduce they don't want you to have sex at this age. Yes, they don't want to have sexual pleasure. According to them, they are protecting you from this sexual thing, which is natural. And at the end of the day, they turn you into somebody that you are not supposed to be. Like this generation of Bayangi girls I'm talking about. That's why most of us grew up hearing that Bayangi girls are loose girls, because most of those girls from that side in those days had been circumcised. So they could not feel sex, so they could sleep with any man. It did not mean anything to them. So they decided to just use their sexual parts as a tool, maybe for financial gain, just because they knew, oh, this thing does not mean anything to me.
Right.
Apart from the physical challenges that this genital mutilation, the mutilated girls face, I think it comes also with social stigmatization, the mental trauma.
Yeah.
Because you get to a point where you grow and you see that some girls are normal and you feel that you're abnormal, and so you carry it on. Imagine a young girl, you say from 8 growing up with such in such conditions.
Okay.
Imagine the barriers that that's going to, she's going to set in her life, in other areas of her life, just because she knows that right inside of her, there's something that's not normal. So there's also this social trauma, this psychological trauma that the girls grow up with, which affects their productivity, affects even their growth, affects even their interaction in the society, because they are not able to speak up. Sometimes even when they are in the gathering, they always feel, they always get aback because they know that there's something wrong with them. They are not normal.
Okay.
So all this is,
which means that the negative effects overshadows.
I don't think there's no positive effect on it, because if you even go religiously, God created us. God wasn't, a fool.
So it means they cannot keep you to one man if they have to mutilate you. There's no way.
I don't think that's a solution. I don't think mutilating a girl will make her be faithful to her husband. It's not a solution.
It's not a solution. It's not a solution.
It is not a solution at all.
So the solution is that you allow the woman has right sexual pleasure. That's what we're talking about.
Of course, a woman has right to sexual pleasure.
But there are most parents out there who don't understand that, or there are communities who don't understand that God created you that way and you have a right to sexual pleasure. That's what we're talking about, Ro.
Exactly.
Well, that's it.
All right.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Do you know any person who has been a victim? Do you have any friend? Do you have anybody?
Not personally.
Not personally.
Yeah.
But you've had
I've read
stories of people went through that process and the psychological trauma and everything. Now I want us to watch a big story by Annette Fiti Esome. She's talking about female genital mutilation, its origin, effects, and in what part of Cameroon it is practiced. Let's watch it right
Female genital mutilation and circumcision is an expression that describes the removal of the clitoris and inner lips as well as part of the outer lips of the genital. This is still being done in some parts of the southwest region and northern regions of Cameroon. There are 4 types of female genital mutilation. The first one is circumcision, which is the removal of the tip of the clitoris. The second consists of the clitoris. The third is the removal of the clitoris plus the small and big lips. infibulation, which everything is removed and then the genital is stitched and only a small hole is left for blood and urine to pass through. This shameful practice has far-reaching consequences on the woman's health, from hemorrhage, infections, and other complications. The age when the practice is performed varies from one village to another and from tribe to tribe. Female genital mutilation is also practiced in the Middle East and Asia. In the Gambia, it is done to girls as young as 7 days old. In Liberia, women do this for initiation purposes into a society called Sande or Bando. In Uganda, anyone convicted of any female genital mutilation practice is subjected to 10 years in prison.
Welcome back. We have a barrister Emma Akem who has just joined us here in the studio. Barrister, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Now, how are you today?
I'm good.
Now, we're talking about female genital mutilation, and I want us to talk about the law. Now, what does the law say about that?
Well, before I get to the law, I think I followed up some of the debates, yes, the arguments that were put forth by my dear sisters who were here before me.
Okay.
I want to say that I'm an Ejagam girl. I am from Kembong in Manu Division.
Okay.
And secondly, I did a baseline studies ordered by International Federation of Women in Radio and TV in the Arabshwa community in the north. And so I want to say that the female genital mutilation has been on the table since the 80s in Cameroon. And you know, the government came up with a national plan against female genital mutilation. And you know, Cameroon in 1999 signed a number of international conventions which covered practices as such. And I want to say that in 2006, the government came up with a new law, law number 2006.
No,
that's
but
007.
Before we even get to that law, now in your own part of, in your own community, was it practiced there?
Oh yes. That was something my parents told me about. And
but right now it doesn't exist.
Well, in my village, you would hardly see somebody who is mutilated. But those who were mutilated in the times of my parents, there were those who did the Nkim dance. And so they did it.
So to belong to that dance group, you
have to be mutilated. And the reason they gave was that, you know, they want the women to actually concentrate. It's a graceful dance. It's a dance that you show off, and it's a dance for beautiful women. And so the people felt that if they let those women, you know, dance like that, every man will want them. And so to keep them away from, you know, having that desire, when a man talks to you, you feel something. To keep them away from that, they had to mutilate them so that they could concentrate.
Keep you away from men, and then you concentrate on what you... But was that the right thing to do?
Well, that was their justification.
Okay.
Yes, I don't want to judge
then other
them.
communities around?
I don't want to judge them because, you know, there is this issue of, you know, human rights and that of tradition. You know, there is the right to actually practice your tradition as it is. And the FGM is one of those. You know, the people, the Ejagan people consider their identity in those days.
It's the
and
detriment of people's health.
The Arab Shua people too, who do it now perpetually. I think it was a rule for them. There is no Arab Shua girl before, let's say, 2-3 years back, who was not circumcised.
They were all circumcised.
All of them. Whether you are in the United States of America or you are in France or Japan, when you are born, your parents will program your period of circumcision, and they will bring you back to the village and you're going to get circumcised. That is how bad. Now,
is it still being practiced?
It is still being practiced as we speak.
What's the village? What are we talking about?
We are talking about the Arab Shua community in Kuseri, in the northern region of Cameroon. That's what we are talking about.
Now that you have identified these village, now what are they doing to stop the practice?
There is, I told you that I went there over the cover of International Federation of Women in Radio and
Because the issue is that you identify those areas, but you do nothing to stop the practice?
I'm coming on.
Okay.
They discovered that it was like that. So they had workshops and seminars to try to call the people's attention, telling them that what they are doing affects their own health, and it costs a lot to the government and our community.
Okay.
So they should do everything to try to reduce the incidence of FGM in their community. Okay. It was after some years, a few years after their conference or their sensitization program that was sent to the north to do an evaluation to see whether what they actually did had an effect in that community.
What are the effects?
And I think
2019.
I think it had an effect because there are some women.
Was it easy to convince the women?
Oh yes, like I told you, it's a practice that is rooted in their religion and their culture. So you cannot just walk one day and tell them that this thing is not good and you know you have to stop it. You know they will not readily accept it. And it has not been readily accepted by everybody. But gradually, from the studies I did, some women have given up their knives.
Okay.
Some families have seen the effects. Some have even lost their girl children. And you know, some of them are becoming reticent and they don't want to do it anymore. But you know, for others and for some religious leaders, I wouldn't say, let me not indict them, because someone, a prominent person in the community, looked at me and said, ma fille, tu sais, je sais que ça va finir, mais ça va prendre 10 ans, 20 ans, 40 ans pour finir. That already sends a message that, well, they have heard your message.
The message, okay.
But there are some diehards who would still continue with that particular procedure.
All right. Now, what does the law say about it?
Well, the law says in section 277 sub 1. I will read so that we diagnose the law together.
Okay.
So it says in sub 1, whoever mutilates the genital organ of a person by any means whatsoever shall be punished with the penalty provided in section 277 above. The penalty shall be imprisonment for life, where A, the offender habitually carries out such practice or does so for commercial purposes. It leads to the death of a victim. 3. The court may also impose the forfeitures provided in section 19 and 30 of this code. 4. The provisions of subsection 1 and 2 above shall not apply where the acts were performed by a qualified person and in order to save life.
So now what explanation do you give so that the layman, because you're just like reading something?
Yes. You see, there is a section 1 of this 2771 that says that whoever mutilates, that speaks directly to the women who carry out the incision. So if they dare cut off the private part of a girl child, they are going to be punished severely.
All right.
And then they are talking about somebody who habitually does it.
Okay.
And it points directly again to the incisors.
Okay.
The women who are carrying out
But the issue is that the law has been there, Ruth. Yeah. But the fact that its implementation is a problem. Is it not a problem?
The law is a new law. The law has just come up. It came up in 2016.
Okay.
Yes, so it has not been there for long.
From 2016 to 2019, where we are, don't you think would have had effects already, Ruth?
That's why from the beginning I keep stressing on these NGOs that are working against this issue, to really put whatever they're doing to work. Right now there is a law against it. They should use these laws to, you know, do their work properly. Do you
think by taking the laws to those who practice it and tell them that the law bans it, it forbids you from doing this?
Because it's like we are still cajoling.
Yes,
we are still cajoling this aspect. It's like, I don't know if we're scared to voice it out, but it's like we're still we're still quoting some things, which is not normal. If there's a law like this,
I want to say that for a law to have effect anywhere, somebody has to report it. And the person who has to report it will not be an NGO. Will not be a person from an NGO. It would be somebody who has suffered the effects, or somebody who saw the activity being carried out.
Is it not possible for an NGO, if somebody complains,
of course,
and then takes the complaints to the Ministry of Women Empowerment and the family, or
the victims first of all need to know that there's a law that exists like this. Most of those victims who are in the villages, they don't know that there's a law like this that exists. So the children, the aunties and the moms, they'll carry that their daughters and, you know, sacrifice. For me, it's a sacrifice. You sacrifice the health and everything of your daughter, and the daughter herself doesn't know that, look, she has a right to say no to it.
That would be for excisions that are carried out on mature women who have a voice. But what about those babies who are incised? How do they report it? So that is where the problem is. And you know, there are other stakeholders that we have to bring in order to make this issue public and report it to the courts. For example, the hospital authorities who receive those women, those children who are incised, when they see it, at least they can report. Because most of these practices are carried out in the hinterlands, and they are not done in public, where people can easily see and then draw the attention of the authorities to come and get these people
So the fact
arrested.
that nobody has ever reported it is a problem?
Not that nobody has ever reported.
Has anybody ever reported any case
We are not
mutilation?
aware. We are not aware because we are not in a community where this thing is carried out. I did these studies in Kusiri. and is far off from where I live. I did it as a job and I left it out. I think to know whether these things are being carried out, court proceedings are not something that when they happen, you put it on the TV for people to see. It is for us to communicate with the society or the community over there and those who actually are at work as far as this issue is concerned, for us to know. Because when we sit here and say it is not being punished, we are speculating.
That's why I'm asking that.
We are speculating.
She quoted a country in Africa, an African country where a woman is being punished for mutilating another woman. But why can it not happen in Cameroon?
Well, I think
why can we not have somebody report it?
It needs to be mediatized.
We need to go around and see the media.
Play a role.
Yes, the media has to play a role. And I think the International Federation of Women in Radio and Television, they have a focus point in the north, and I would crave your indulgence to try to, liaise with them and find out what is being done.
Now, what can be done to address the problem?
We're talking about the media, like for example, what you're doing already, talking about issues like this is very important.
The media can only talk about if you have a victim. If you have a victim,
we just said there's a woman that was punished somewhere in Africa because she practiced this, or this was practiced on someone she knows. If stories like this are heard all the time,
give courage to others.
It will encourage other women to come out.
All right. Now I want us to watch this. Is no comments. I want us to watch this. We'll be right back. Now we're talking about female genital mutilation. We're looking at a means to completely eradicate it or eliminate female genital mutilation in Cameroon, Africa, or in any other part of the world. Now, Barrister, what do we do?
Well,
If
I
we have
think
to eradicate, the laws are there,
yes.
but now its
I
implementation is
think,
another problem.
It's not actually the implementation of the law per se.
Now, what is the
because
problem?
The problem is with those who practice FGM, because you know in those areas there are some people who are concerned, like parents, like the young girls, like the religious authorities, the imams, the blammers and the rest. We have the school teachers, we have hospital authorities, and we have the delegation of promotion of women and the family. Those are the stakeholders, and those are the people who can, and then I'll add non-governmental organizations too. Those are the people who are directly concerned.
Okay.
And I think if we educate them at their various levels, we are going to come up with something.
Okay.
True that some of the young girls who are radical now do not know about the legal provisions on this FGM. But I think we as civil society stakeholders can make them know that there is a remedy already for them. And you know, sometimes it is the belief that causes them. I would dare to say that when I went to Kuseri, I was informed that even the politicians, they use the head of the clitoris that has been removed to put them in their tongue, and when they say anything, it is sweet in the ears of the community. If we start telling them that that is a lie, and you know, people will still listen to them, people will believe in their actions if they are good for their communities. They too will stop encouraging those women to cut off those things because they use them. If the uses are wiped out in our community, it will reduce some of them. If the parents know that it will cost them a lot if they do this thing, some of those who have not already had children with fistulas and other health hazards, they would also try to limit it. If the religious leaders learn to interpret their sonars and their religious publications properly, they will know that there is nowhere in those Bibles and how do they call those the Quran or the Sunnah, where it has been prescribed that to be a good or a good faithful, you have to get mutilated. But at least they would know, and they, you know, those people, if the imam says something, it is gospel. If the imam can be captured, sensitized, and made to educate the people, that could be a strategy to end it. That would be a very good strategy. For those communities that believe a lot in their religious leaders. And then for MINPROF, you know, their sensitization, you know, they are going down to meet the women in the community. Because one of the problems that is inherent in the northern region is that of communication, because they don't understand French. If you as a stranger has to access their community, you have to get somebody who speaks Arab to be able to get them.
Now, Ruth, what do you have to say? What are you telling the women? Especially you know, those communities where this female genital mutilation is still very much practiced.
Yeah, Maureen, you know, before we got here, we were also ignorant of some issues. And we got to know it because we learned it from someone else, or we learned it from some other source. And I think that the main issue here, like the barrister just said, is communication. Women need to be denouncing as well. Women need to, first of all, they need to know. First of all, they need to know that these practices don't come good.
Okay.
And then secondly, we need to they need to be empowered.
Okay.
Who are those responsible to empower those women in those areas? They need to be empowered to be able to come out to say that, look, I have been done this and it's not good. And then those who are victims should be able to relay the information to those who are coming up.
Okay.
So it's a whole process that involves the government, NGOs, religious bodies, and even those who have, and even the victims. So a lot of communication needs to be done. A lot of empowerment needs to be done. There should be women who have gone through this process, who can be able to stand up to say, look, we went through this, and these are the consequences,
so
or these are the effects.
So what you're telling women tonight is that you should take it as a personal problem, wherever you are.
But of course, it should be.
Wherever you are as a woman, you should be able to speak out about things that, you know, don't go well with you.
Okay.
Yeah, women must be given that right, that privilege, that opportunity, the platforms even, to be able to speak out about things that don't go well with you.
All right, the last words to women, Barrister?
Well, I just want to encourage those who have gone through this process, because it's not their fault. Don't be ashamed. It's not your fault that you were circumcised. Most of them are victims of circumstances, but do not allow your children to go through the same suffering that you went through, because it costs both the family and the state a fortune.
All right, we had a Barrister Emma Akem. We equally had a Ruth, a peer with an entrepreneur. We also had Clarice Nzinge of Better Girls. I want to thank you so much for watching the program. Take a round of the same time next week. Goodbye.